Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mark. Thank you for the kind words. Thanks for the introduction. Most importantly, thank you all for having me. I really miss having the opportunity to get out and do these presentations in person. I always love the energy in a room, the conversation, the offline discussions. Talking to each of you about what you're seeing happening in the economy. It's how I feel like I learned so much about our community, hearing and interfacing with all of you. And so this is an adequate substitute, but I do look forward, hopefully here before the end of this year, to being in a position where we can get back to doing these events in person. We did. I do want to talk a little bit about this as in the context of a comeback, and I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge just how much pain. Human pain, community pain, economic pain, our region, our community has suffered over the course of the last year. I've been doing this work now, it's hard to believe, but for some version of this job for almost 18 years. And I have never experienced a year like what we had in 2020 and into the beginning of 2021. With the amount of disruption and uncertainty, with the fear and anxiety that each of us as individuals have had for ourselves, for our families, for our coworkers and our employees, with the significant pain points associated with businesses being forced to close down, lay off employees, unemployment situation being what it has been, and yet during a year where I saw the most significant disruption to our regional economy in my lifetime in Syracuse. I also saw some of the absolute best of our community, seeing neighbor helping neighbor, seeing businesses pulling together to support one another, seeing the city bending over backwards to change their parking regulations so that people could drop in and pick up food at our restaurants and our retailers, government, the private sector. Everyone working together, pulling together in the interest of helping us get through this crisis, and that's what this is. This is a temporary crisis. And for those of you who don't know, CenterState CEO, we think of ourselves as the Regional Business Association. Our primary mission and our vision is to create a place where business thrives and where people prosper. Right? It's that duality of mission. It's not sufficient just to have a place where business growth is happening, but we also have to acknowledge that it's human beings that also experience our economy, and that for far too long we've had vast disequities in the way in which economic progress has been measured in Syracuse, and that for us to be a truly sustainable, functioning, progressive, dynamic, amazing top-tier city, we have to make sure that we bring our people along with our economy. It's incredibly challenging work, but it is incredibly rewarding work as well. I think it's just useful. This slide is tough for me to look at sometimes because I'm reminded that these headlines were just from 12 short months ago. February, end of February, beginning of March of 2020, when we were talking about the Syracuse economy as being the most dynamic it had been in 40 years. Our job growth was outpacing every metropolitan area in the state, including New York City, something that hasn't happened in 30 years itself. We were seeing major new investments in projects in our city and our suburbs. We had our elected leaders like Congressman Katko and our local leaders like County Executive McMahon and Mayor Walsh and others working together hand in hand. I like to think the business community doing its part, not-for-profit organizations, everyone contributing to this sense of hope, of optimism, and real and meaningful progress for our community. And then one day, we wake up to find our economy and our communities dramatically changed. And the pivot and the reaction that was required of all of you, of all of us, whether it's as individuals or as business owners, has been astounding. We take for granted perhaps sometimes just how significant a shift it was, but as it relates to the data, we saw a massive amount of disruption. Unfortunately, not all industries were impacted in the same fashion. Some industries like our restaurant industry, our hotel and our tourism industry, our education and our healthcare services providers have been impacted much more dramatically than others. I'm really proud of the fact that Central New York manufacturing industry, our high-tech industry, and others have actually managed to perform really well throughout the pandemic. But nevertheless, we had an unemployment rate at one point during 2020 that was approaching 16%, after having a historic low of just under 4% back in February of 2020. You can see, you can see what happened, the massive spike, certainly in unemployment in our region, how we were beginning to perform, what happened, and certainly now, since the height of unemployment back in April of 2020, we are seeing a dropping of that unemployment rate. We are seeing people return to work. We're also seeing a staggering number of people who are choosing not to return to work. And one of the reasons why the unemployment rate is dropping as rapidly locally as it is because people are dropping out of the labor market. There is positive movement. There are people who are going back to work, but there are also people who are staying out of work and out of the labor market, which is also impacting that number. I think the critical thing that I hope all of you take away from this is that it is our feeling that while the economic disruption associated with COVID-19 is likely to last and have a long tail, that fundamentally we believe the U.S. economy and the Central New York economy, that the fundamentals of the economy remain strong. That this is, in fact, not a traditional economic crisis. This is an economic crisis driven by a public health crisis, so a once-in-a-year pandemic, and new vaccines and new treatments, some of which are being developed right here at Syracuse, new testing capabilities are beginning to drive cases down and beginning to provide us hope of a return to what we all think of as our new normal. So I share that just to say I have certainly not lost hope. There has been real damage to our economy and real pain for many business owners and employees. But I fundamentally believe that our economy during the recovery period is positioned for growth and success. And I fundamentally believe that we can, and we not only can, but we will recreate the conditions that allowed us to be successful in the ways in which we were at the beginning of 2020. I just want to talk a little bit about sort of where we've been, right? Because I think there is a sentiment that this is a big hole for us to climb out of. And I just want to remind people that we've done this before. This is one of the reasons why I love Central New York, why I get excited about coming to work every day, why I love working with partners and problem solving on behalf of our region and our community, because we have seen hard times. When I moved back to Syracuse in 2003, there were major challenges facing our economy. Carrier was closing down, and downtown was facing its largest exodus of employees and corporate offices that we'd seen at any point in its history. And we were faced with significant challenges about how we were going about re-envisioning our economy and thinking about our future. And yet, over the course of time, we have made investments over that period of time that have generated a significant amount of new economic activity, turning those challenges into opportunities. The revitalization of downtown is a great example. The growth of our tech economy is a great example. Both of those 15 years ago were places that people were telling us we had lost and would never get back. And here we are at a point where they are two of the most impactful and important parts of our economic strategy going forward. We certainly talked a little bit about the developments in healthcare and vaccines, allowing us to get back to a place where we are comfortable going out. I've been amazed over the course of the last couple of months since the Salt City Market opened in downtown Syracuse, just how many people are going out to sample the diverse and the rich culinary opportunities that exist in the city. This is a project that's been on the drawing board for 7 or almost 8 years. Partnership with the Allen Foundation. They did phenomenal work taking a vacant parking lot in downtown Syracuse and turning it in not only to their new headquarters, but also into affordable housing in downtown Syracuse, something which is sorely needed, and a food hall featuring 10 of our city's most dynamic, ethnically diverse food entrepreneurs, with the goal of helping these entrepreneurs start their businesses, build a following, and then supporting these businesses as they move back out into our city, into our region, into our neighborhoods, into retail storefronts to launch their businesses and to be successful. Not only adding to our cultural richness as a community, but also helping them build wealth and close some of the wealth and inequality gaps that we know exist for our region's minority and our refugee community. And this is a topic that CenterState cares deeply about. This is a topic that we work hard on every single day. We view it as part and parcel of our economic agenda, is thinking about how, as we go about building our economy, we can not only how we can avoid continuing to contribute to historical inequalities, but also how we can start thinking about turning them around. A couple of years ago, you may have seen we, along with the Allen Foundation, Lemoyne, Syracuse University, the city and the county, received a big investment, a $3 million grant from the Jpmorgan Chase Foundation, one of only 5 cities out of 254 in America that received this award, specifically for the work around the Syracuse Surge in partnership with the mayor, and around helping to prepare residents in the city of Syracuse for growing careers in technology that we know are happening in our region. Historically, jobs in tech are some of the most homogeneous employment opportunities that exist in our entire community. So traditionally tech growth centers end up perpetuating and increasing inequality instead of driving it down. And so we're trying to be intentional on the front end of this boom in our tech growth economy and helping prepare residents in our city, in particular minority and residents and traditionally disadvantaged residents, for skills in coding and software and IT and basic tech-driven customer service, so that they can participate as equal and active partners in our economic progress on a go-forward basis. I think these are some groundbreaking strategies. We're seeing some great early results, but this is work that is going to take a long time for us to be able to achieve a closing of that economic income inequality gap that we see. But there's lots of exciting things that are happening. This is just a overview of some of the projects that make up what is known as the Syracuse Surge. This idea of knitting together our tech infrastructure, our educational infrastructure, the city's new smart cities infrastructure, and turning them into a growth engine for our community, and connecting that growth engine to some of the most traditionally disadvantaged regions in our parts of our region and our city, such as the South Side, where a number of these major investments are taking place. You know, we've got this unique opportunity right now. Syracuse is known as New York State's flagship smart city. We're putting sensors up on street poles to enable us to be able to deliver municipal services better, but also to develop partnerships with private sector companies who want to develop their own businesses and their own applications using all of that municipal data, things that can save businesses money, that can improve people's lives. And we think this is a significant opportunity to create a test bed for innovation here in Syracuse that can only just double down on the growth of our tech economy. A project that I'm particularly proud of and I'm excited about, especially as the parent of a student in the Syracuse City Schools, we have the renovation of the old Central Tech building, one of the most beautiful buildings in all of Syracuse, iconic. It has sat vacant for as long as I have been back in town. At our old offices down on the end of South Salina Street, used to look across the street at this building every single day. And it's been a goal of ours to see this redeveloped. And now, thanks to the city schools, the county, the city, and the state of New York, we have a plan to build the first New York State Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Maths regional high school in all of New York State. We're going to put it in this building, and it's going to be open to city students, and it's going to be open to regional high school students. And this facility is going to have the best career and technical education programming in all of Central New York. And I am convinced it is going to be a model, not just for how we prepare our students for the the tech-enabled future that we know is coming, but also how we start to get parts of our community that have been historically segregated from one another to start to see each other in different ways, interact with each other, build relationships with one another, and break down some of the barriers that I still believe hold us back too much. But some of those barriers are breaking down. And I think historically we've seen many of our neighborhoods, places such as downtown, have seen massive investments. The University Hill has seen massive investments. Some of our suburbs, particularly the northern suburbs, have continued to grow and see major investments. And yet other parts of our community, like the south side of Syracuse, have not seen any of those same investments, no major economic development activity in many, many years. And that's beginning to change, not only with the STEAM school, but certainly JMA Wireless. They are building a 25 to 30, sometimes I think the price tag is going up by the day, maybe a $40 million campus on the south side of the city of Syracuse to build next generation 5G wireless antennas. And they're doing it in one of the most impoverished and segregated neighborhoods in America. We're working with them on how to help bring people from the neighborhood into employment in that facility to make sure that they've got the skills to be successful. These projects have the potential to be transformative in the way that we think about our city and what it takes to make successful business investments. Another project I'm particularly proud of, you may have seen some reporting on this week, an expansion of the Syracuse Technology Garden. This is a project we've been working on. As you may know, CenterState CEO operates the Tech Garden. We lease it from the city of Syracuse every year since it was a collapsed parking garage 15 years ago. And we're building this growing and dynamic tech ecosystem now with companies who are graduating out of the Tech Garden and populating what we call our innovation corridor down along Warren Street. TCG Player and SpinCar and Ephesus and Digital Hive and some of our fastest growing companies in the region who are graduates of and still deeply involved in the work that we do at the Tech Garden. We're out of space. The facility doesn't work for us in its current form, and we want to put $16.5 million into this building, which the city owns. We want to put 2 floors up on top, and we want to expand the programs and the services we're offering to the community. And while it may be a source of contention today and a headline about disagreements, I remain convinced we'll find a path forward. This project is too important for our community to not find a resolution between the city and the Tech Garden to make this happen. And we're committed to doing that. We want to be good corporate citizens, and we believe we have. In addition to our downtown tech community, we're seeing these remarkable things that are happening in the field of unmanned systems. And some of you may have noted in the newspaper just yesterday, Central New York won another major designation as one of only 5 airports in the country, Syracuse Hancock, to now have been authorized for what is called the Drone Detection Pilot Program, a very prestigious program with the FAA. Because of our region's history in investing in UAS, we had capabilities that very few other parts of the country did. And we're now one of only 5 airports in the country where companies can come and test technology that is designed to prevent drone incursions onto commercial airspace, a problem that we know is if you remember in London 3 or 4 years ago, there were 1,000 or 1,500 incursions over a period of 1 or 2 days, people flying drones in and out of the airspace, and it shut the airport down. This is a problem that needs to be solved. It's a problem that we have companies here in Central New York that are trying to solve, and now we have yet another UAS test bed that we can offer to the international corporate marketplace as another reason why they should be here in Central New York. And just to take that sort of ephemeral idea about drones and tech and put a human face on it. Just recently, we worked with SUNY Upstate Medical and the New Air Alliance, and they piloted one of the very first deliveries of a COVID vaccine testing kit, utilizing a drone, effectively showing how they might, instead of using personal couriers, how they could use this new technology, advanced technology, to deliver things both safer and more efficiently, more effectively, from a testing center to the lab where, in fact, a sample would be tested. Obviously, it wasn't a live sample. This was done with public safety first and foremost, but it does give you a sense for how this technology could be used to improve people's lives. I'm also particularly proud of the fact that amidst a global pandemic and the worst economic decline that we have seen in this country over the last effectively over the last almost 100 years, 90 years. Our community was in a position to close a deal with Amazon and land a $350 million investment, not just in the major facility out in Clay that you see here, but 2 other smaller facilities here in the region. All told, those projects are going to employ over 1,200 people, could be higher given seasonal adjustments. But that facility out in Clay is almost 4 million square feet. It is one of the largest warehouses in the world that's being built here in Central New York. And that project closed thanks to the leadership of County Executive Ryan McMahon, great community partnerships, and the ability to bring that kind of investment to our region in a period where those jobs are needed more than ever is fortuitous and something I'm incredibly proud of. Maybe even more recently, you've seen news, good news about Lockheed Martin. And I think Mark mentioned at the beginning, one of the affiliate corporations that CenterState CEO runs is Electronics Park. We're actually the landlord out here at Electronics Park. We entered into that arrangement back in 1996 when there was a threat to losing what was now becoming Lockheed Martin, formerly Martin Marietta, from the town of Salina. We entered into a unique relationship with Lockheed in the state of New York and ourselves. And so we manage that entire business park. We manage it to keep Lockheed happy, to help them be successful, and also to encourage the redevelopment of other buildings inside the park. And there was some news last week that Lockheed is going to be closing down some facilities in Massachusetts and Maryland. Some of those jobs and some of that production manufacturing is going to be moving here to Syracuse. Nothing but great news, especially given the fact that just a couple short years ago, there was some reporting that there was a risk to us losing this facility in the region. And I'm proud that we fought to keep it. And because we fought to keep it with partners like Congressman Katko and Senator Schumer, we've been able to build on that platform and bring new jobs and new growth here to Central New York. So, I just want to just say something quickly about residential growth. I know that's important, certainly to many of you. We are seeing significant changes in our residential market, both pre-COVID and now post-COVID. But one of the things that I find the most exciting is that for the first time in my career, we're not fighting the narrative that young people are leaving Syracuse in droves. When I came back in 2003, all I heard about was the brain drain, the brain drain, the brain drain. It was ironic because as a young, aspirational, person coming back here, my wife and I had chosen to be here, and we just kept on being told about all the people who had chosen not to be here. And today, more and more millennials, that coveted 24 to 35 demographic, are choosing to move to Syracuse. It is a huge opportunity for us, not only today, but certainly into the future. I think it's important also here just to acknowledge, some of the statistics. People are finding Syracuse. We know there's changes because of COVID. Remote work is going to have effects on our economy and our community. I know it's had impacts on our real estate development. As you see with median home prices up significantly. That's very different from what we're used to seeing here in Central New York. It is both an opportunity and a challenge that we have to be aware of. But all in all, certainly for homeowners and for our community as a whole, in terms of our taxable values, it's a sign of progress for our community. And certainly we're seeing continued growth in our residential population in downtown too. It's been one of the shining stars. The fastest growing neighborhood in all of Central New York is now no longer some of our suburban communities, but it's the heart of our city. And I think that is perfectly aligned with where we see market opportunity happening right now. And I know we're coming close to time, so I'm just going to speed through a couple of these slides. I do want to make sure you all are aware, one of the tools that we have that I hope you all are taking advantage of as you're working with residential and commercial clients is the Good Life Central New York. thegoodlifecny.com. This is a website designed to provide information on the quality of life here in the region, to provide testimonials of people who've moved back, to point people to real estate brokers and real estate assets and talk about our neighborhoods. And most importantly, to provide information on jobs for people who are here looking for work or people who want to return here Hopefully you all are taking advantage of it. And if you're not, please reach out to me and we'll figure out how to get you plugged in to the effort. Thousands of jobs listed on the site. It's been a great tool. We're spending a couple $100,000 a year in partnership with Advanced Media, marketing this website into communities, mostly in the Northeast. And we're seeing great traction. New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., and other metro markets where people are finding jobs in Central New York and learning about our quality of life here in the region. And it's really important that as we build that talent base, as we recruit people here, we understand and we acknowledge that, especially that millennial population that is coming back, they have a different set of expectations for what our community looks like and how we operate. That generation is far more diverse. They expect more diversity, and they expect that our diversity will be acknowledged as a community value and a strength, not seen as something that holds us back. And so we're running programming for our young professionals across the spectrum to connect with each other and to understand that this is a place where we want to see a multicultural, successful, diverse workforce that is frankly what our members in the business community are demanding in order to be successful themselves. As we think about the future, it's impossible not to mention Interstate 81. I know there's been a long history of debate and discussion and sometimes dissension about what the right solution is. We're certainly getting closer to the point where the state is going to give the green light for what is known as the community grid version of this project. It is our hope that we will find and secure through a federal infrastructure bill with the help of our federal electeds, the $2 billion necessary to undertake this project. We think it will be great for the city and for the region. Most importantly, that $2 billion spend will get money circulating back into the central New York economy in a way that and at a scale that very other few things can. So this project, while it's always been a priority, is even more of a priority today than it has been before. Making sure that our residents in the city are prepared for those opportunities, whether as entrepreneurs or prepared for the construction jobs that will be necessary in order to build that, is a key part of our strategy. We're working with the city and the county and others on a program called Syracuse Build. Again, it's about empowering people to be a part of that economic resurgence that we are seeing here in the region. So I just want to close with an acknowledgement about some of the circumstances that we found ourselves in over the course of the last year. I've talked a lot today about racial inequality and economic disequity. And I just want to acknowledge that it is our position at CenterState CEO that this is not just a social and a moral issue. It's an economic imperative. Companies are being, in corporate America, corporate executives are being pulled into conversations about race and equity in ways that 10 years ago would have been unheard of, that 3 years ago was happening in very few places, and now where there is an expectation for corporate America to be providing leadership. And in Central New York, we are not immune to that. Our business community has stepped up. We have made investments. We have certainly looked inside our own organization, but we are also working with member companies to help them think about how they can be the best corporate citizens and how they can leverage the diversity of our community and the diversity of their workforce for their own economic success. We know that closing some of these inequality gaps that exist in our economy can generate real economic growth and economic activity. And we want to be at the leading edge of that at CenterState CEO and in Central New York, instead of at the tailing edge of it. This is not a conversation that any of us in this country can avoid. And in particular, in corporate America, there are polls showing that 70% of Americans are looking to corporate leaders for leadership on issues of race and inequality and social justice. That is not something that we take lightly. It's something we're investing heavily in. Recently promoted an incredibly talented woman on our team, Dr. Johanna Rogers, who's leading a racial and equity and social impact portfolio, working with our members to do trainings and deliver services and help them build plans to be better corporate citizens and to better position themselves as successful progressive businesses here and into the future. So I will stop there. I want to say thank you. I feel strongly that there is hope, There is optimism. Vaccines are coming. They are working. We're so appreciative of the support you all have provided to us and to our community throughout this crisis. And we're looking forward to being able to get back to a level of normalcy and start to chart and build that hopeful, optimistic future again. So thank you all very much.
Oh, Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. The first question comes from George Mango. It is, as inoculations increase, are there any plans to bring the community back into the city of Syracuse?
To bring the community back into the city of Syracuse? I'm not sure I fully understand the question. You mean to try to get people comfortable with coming back into the city and downtown and spending money?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's what he means.
I'm sorry, it took a minute for my synapses to click there. Actually, I want to give credit where credit's due. Visit Syracuse, our regional tourism promotion agency, and the Downtown Committee of Syracuse have been working with a mower agency and others on what I think is a great campaign. Some of you may have seen the ads on Facebook, on social media, but also on TV. It's called Put the U Back in Syracuse. Really trying to remind people that there are many businesses, whether they're retail businesses, restaurateurs, or others that depend on people coming out and spending money. And I get it. As you see behind me, I'm still working from home most of the time. I'm going to the office periodically, but our staff is still mostly remote. But people need to feel safe. And so certainly with increase in vaccinations, I want to give credit to our business community. Many of our businesses are making massive investments. They're rethinking their layouts. They're changing their kitchens. They're changing their ingress and egress patterns. They're putting in air purification equipment to restore confidence to customers. And so I think while we're making good progress, certainly more can be done. And as people get the shots in the arm, I think we're going to see a lot more activity return to Syracuse this summer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's never easy to follow Rob. He does a wonderful job speaking and presenting, and he's a good partner in trying to do good things and advance the things for Central New York. So good to see you again, Rob, and good to see all of you virtually. And I hope that someday in the not too distant future, we can actually meet again in person and shake hands and all those good things without masks on. And I'm hopeful for that. So I just want to touch on a few things and then I can open it up. I really don't want to go too long, but there's three things I want to talk about: COVID a little bit, talk about Homeland Security. My job is the lead Republican on Homeland Security, and then infrastructure, which I think is critically important. And my time on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee can get quite interesting in that regard in the not too distant future. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the ongoing pandemic response. We've pumped an awful lot of money into the economy, a tremendous amount of money, and a tremendous amount of money has come to Central New York. There is an issue going forward with respect to state and local funding. I'm very supportive to give state and local funding, not to bail out bad financial actors that predated and acts that predated the pandemic and pre-existing debt and all that stuff, but to try and get you as close to being made whole as possible, you being the county governments and the city governments and local governments, trying to get you as close to being made whole as possible, given the fact that you had to shut down your operations, you had to tell businesses to shut down, and restaurants and all those tax revenue generators, which you depend on, were also shut down. So trying to make these county governments whole and the city governments whole is what I'm very supportive of, and the state as well. I don't think we should just open the checkbook and go crazy. And I think that the Democrats' last bill in that regard was really just chock full of stuff. Mindful of that, I'm hopeful that what they're doing in the Senate is going to come back with something that's a little bit more reasonable for us to pass and get things done. Nothing's perfect. I understand that. I'm ready, willing, and able to compromise and work in a bipartisan manner. And that's what we need to do in this country, is to get back to having that mindset. But there are an awful lot of things we have done. It's kind of interesting when you look at the Central New York housing market during the COVID crisis. It's still booming. And my son has just purchased his first home at 26 years old, and we're excited about that. And the closing will be in another week or so. And actually, it's going to be this Friday or Saturday. And so we're very excited about that. And that housing market, especially for that mid-level house, is off the charts. That's great, but it's probably also reflective of the fact that there's not enough inventory. And so I'd like to hear from you all as to what you think in that regard and what we can do in that regard to try and help with that long-term issue. For my part, I'm going to continue advocating for federal policies that ensure the health and financial security of individuals in our community, support local businesses and their workers, help them get through this very tough time, and provide necessary resources for response efforts at the state and local level. In December, I was proud to support the passage of bipartisan relief legislation that included SNAP benefits, $15 billion in rental assistance for tenants and landlords, which is very important, and over $28 billion for federal vaccination efforts and $20 billion for testing. There's been an awful lot of money, like I said, put into this, and I don't think we're done doing it, but we got to be smart in how we do it going forward. And I'm looking forward to working to make that happen. So many other things we could talk about with COVID, but you get the gist. Homeland Security. I've only been in Congress 6 years. I'm just starting my 7th year. And I was very honored to be named head of the Republican ranking member or head of the Homeland Security Committee in Congress. That's all I've done most of my adult life is try and keep this country safe. And it's something I'm very proud of. And I'm excited for Homeland Security going forward. I have about 16 members that I oversee on the Republican side, and the committee has increased in size. Cybersecurity is a very, very big issue. It's by no means the only issue, but cybersecurity affects everybody's in every walk of life throughout this great country. Ransomware attacks in our school systems. There was even a cybersecurity attack recently in the Florida water system, which is something that's very terrifying, and that's a big threat going forward. Our public grids, everything to do with this, the .gov and the .com networks, we are in charge of trying to protect, and there's a lot of work to be done in that regard. I brought my leadership experience over the many years to the committee, and I'm going to work with my colleagues on many, many things. Protecting our nation against terrorist attacks at home is always something we do. It includes responding to the events of January 6th, which deeply shook me. And I took what I felt was the right vote, and the political consequences, quite frankly, be damned. I'm going to do what I think is right, and whatever happens going forward is whatever happens. I know what I did was right. FEMA, and making sure FEMA does a good job on helping us with the pandemic response, and making sure that FEMA is getting the vaccines distributed in an effective manner. It's sometimes difficult with this governor, but we can talk more about that if you'd like. I talked about cybersecurity, our nation's transportation systems, and keeping them safe, trains and airports especially. We've done a lot to revamp airport security over the last several years under my watch, and we're going to continue to do that. Securing our nation's borders. I'm very concerned about what's going on the southern border. It seems like the border crisis is rearing its ugly head again, and I'm concerned about that. There's a lot of other things we have that impact us both locally and nationally. But it's all about protecting our families and our small businesses, our utilities from cyber attacks, promoting investments in security and other safety priorities at the Syracuse Airport. We've done a lot with them. Jason Terreri's been a great partner. Keeping dangerous synthetic drugs off the street. And you saw there's a huge spike in mental health issues and related, I think, drug use and drug overdose deaths since the pandemic began. And ensuring that FEMA delivers the vaccines to Central New York, like I said, is another big thing. So those are just some of the things I'm working on in Homeland. There's an awful lot more, and I don't want to take up all your time. But lastly, and I think which is incredibly important, is infrastructure. I've been on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee since I've been in Congress. I was head of a subcommittee last term. I am one of the senior members now on the Republican side. And I remember just last night on the floor of the House, I talked to the chair of the subcommittee, Peter DeFazio, and said, Peter, you guys got to stop with this partisan nonsense. I go, now is the time to do a real good infrastructure package that addresses some of the systemic problems. And any of you in real estate will know, if you have a real highway bill or real infrastructure bill that really invests in our communities, it's not about other things other than fixing the aging and crumbling water infrastructure, fixing our roads and bridges. The return on your investment is about $5 or $6 for every dollar you spend. So that's really good. It's a very good return, and we need to do it. And they are, he responded very positively to it. And I think I'm going to be engaging more with the White House than I anticipated on this issue. And I'm excited about that as well, because I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat in the White House or whoever. I just care about moving the ball forward. And there's a lot of work we can do on the highway bill. And obviously, it's going to be a big issue going forward with Route 81 and whatever happens with Route 81. It looks like it's starting to move finally after all this time. I'm trying to revamp the infrastructure licensing requirements and administrative reviews. It's such a labyrinth and it causes so many delays. It's such a chokehold on things that it really stymies development. So I'm working on that as well. And I really do believe that with good infrastructure reform, we can have a very positive impact on our community. And I think I could go on and on about this as well, but I think I'll just stop there and open it up for people. So I'd like to hear from you all.
Okay, I will go ahead and look at some of the questions in the chat. One of them says, Congressman Katko, we need additional housing inventory to support the demand. Several major home builders have stopped doing business in central New York and have left the area. What can be done to encourage subdivision approvals and encourage home builders to expand their activity in the area?
Well, I'd like to hear from you on that as well, and I'm not trying to punt it. That's one of the things I really want to hear. You know, you're on the front lines. What do you think we should be doing? A lot of this is local zoning issues. A lot of it is state ridiculous regulations, but there's got to be some things we can do on a national level to help incentivize things. I mean, I look at it this way from a home building standpoint. Interest rates are remarkably low. So there's an awful lot of desire there. So what I don't understand why there's not more development going on. Maybe you guys can shed some light on that. I'd really like to hear from you all. And tell me what you want me to advocate for.
Okay, thank you. You're open to that. We appreciate that. Another one came in. The remedy of the alleviation of the housing shortage has been identified by NAR Chief Economics Lawrence Yoon. It is through the replenishment of the housing stock through new construction that will fix this issue. Any assistance with the approval process of subdivisions and incentives. Basically, I think what we're looking for is help along the way for those things instead of roadblocks. And it sounds as though you're open to listening and putting our heads together along those lines. You'd be
my initial thought is incentivizing more development. I can't think of a better incentivization than low interest rates. But I also know, because I'm building an addition on my house now for my mother-in-law to move in, and I also know that timber and wood and timber rates have gone up by 20%. So it's very, very expensive to build homes right now, and that's a real concern.
That's what's happened. That's what's hurt us. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Are there any affordable housing programs under consideration in DC?
There's a tremendous number of affordable housing programs in the Department of Housing and Urban Development for lower income individuals that, grant programs and what have you that are always available. And I have a staffer named Tom Hagg who spends an awful lot of time combing the federal grant landscape to try and find money for Central New Yorkers for developments of all sorts. A lot of times it's not brick and mortar, but in the HUD domain, it is. And the HUD has a lot of incentivization programs for lower income development. And we're looking at the 15th Ward. I think that's obviously an area that we hope gets redeveloped soon. And I'm working with the mayor on that, the county executive, the Allen Foundation. That's why I brought Ben Carson up here, so he could get interested in what they call the purpose-built communities, which I think are really important. So that type of thing within attracting HUD dollars here is what I can definitely help with, and I will definitely do that.
Thank you. There's one last question I see in here, and it says, will you be voting against the For the People Act, federalizing the election process? If it passes, we will never have another fair election. I'm just reading the question out there.
I'm absolutely voting against it, but I just got to ask you one fair question. How many of you would like to sit at home at night after dinner, crack a beer, put your feet up to watch TV and see political commercials come out where people are beating the crap out of each other and knowing that you paid for it? Because that's what this bill does. It's a 6-to-1 matching grant. So for every dollar you raise, you get $6 from the federal government that you can use in your campaigns. That to me is pure insanity. Why would somebody want to have to pay for this garbage on TV? What I think we should do is pass the amendment that I fully supportive of. I'm the first Republican to do it. It has to repeal Citizens United decision by a constitutional amendment. And that would allow state and local governments to limit the amount of money spent on campaigns. And wouldn't that be wonderful? And I think that's what we need to do. And we certainly don't need already overburdened Americans taking their hard-earned tax dollars to pay for commercials that they have to sit and watch on TV, political ads. That's the pure definition of insanity in my mind.
There is one more that just came in that I'd like
Sure.
to throw out. I know you have just a couple of minutes left is all, but it says, Congressman Katko, thank you for your time. What's your plan to help improve the housing inequalities in Syracuse? For example, Highway 81 matches up directly with the redlining from Syracuse Pass.
Yeah, I'm
Any
well aware of
thoughts
that.
on
Like I touched on it earlier. I brought Ben Carson up here specifically to address this issue and the lead paint issue. The lead paint issue was a huge issue, and after he came up, we were able to secure for Syracuse and Onondaga County record amounts of money for lead paint remediation, which is hugely important. We also had a meeting with him and Ryan and Ben, myself, talking about the 15th Ward and how to redo it. And whatever iteration of 81, the rebuild that happens, I want to make sure that we have the federal dollars there that not only make sure that the road itself is properly built and with the communities behind it, whatever you guys decide, but also that there's federal dollars there to help revitalize these adjoining communities. And that's where HUD can come in. And that's where mixed use development is going to be really important. I think you look at what they're doing at the Salt City Market, 20% of that building is for low income housing. And so they get to stay in a beautiful building, but they don't have to pay the exorbitant rates that some of the others might have to pay, but that's okay. I think that's
Excellent.
how you help revitalize these communities. And I think
Absolutely.
whatever happens especially with the 15th Ward, that we need to absolutely use a HUD. I mean, we need to have a force multiplier with HUD, private sector investment, but also grant money that we can secure from outside of HUD in the federal government. So I'm excited about it all, to be honest with you.
Do you see the property tax rate remaining stable going forward?
One thing I'm concerned about with the state government is that their knee-jerk reaction to everything is to raise revenue by raising taxes. And they just don't seem to get it. They just don't. When I moved into my house in 1988, I think my tax bill total was $5,300. Now it's $9,300 or $9,400. It's almost doubled. It's crazy. It's something I'm very concerned about. If we can get state and local funding to the states and local governments, they better not raise the rates. I can tell you that much, because that would be ridiculous. If we get them the money that we're contemplating getting them, they damn well better not raise the rates. Maybe they should cut the rates, is my opinion.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I know that you've only got a limited amount of time, and we appreciate you taking out the time to come and address us today. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure appearing before all of you. And I just want to say thank you very much. And we'll get through this pandemic. We're going to turn the corner, and we're going to get through the unrest from the January 6th. And we're going to be better as a country for everything moving forward. So God bless you all, and take care.